Okay, this lesson is about rearranging simple formulae, and I call them simple formulae because they are just going to involve addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. There's a follow-up video to this where we look at some formulae that might involve some powers and more fractions and maybe brackets as well. Okay, what does it mean to rearrange a formula? Well, another name for rearranging a formula is changing the subject. And the subject of a formula is the letter that it's on its own on the left hand side of the formula, and on the right hand side are all the other letters. And there's a couple of simple examples here for you. We've got A equals B plus C. A is the subject because it's on its own on the left hand side and it equals all the other letters. And the other one, X equals 4y minus 3s. X is the subject because that's on its own and that equals all the other letters on the other side. And there may be some numbers involved as well, as you can see there. Now those formulae are just made up. They don't mean anything. They don't represent a formula to work anything out. It's just to illustrate what the subject of a formula means. So, what does it mean to rearrange a formula and how do we do it? Well, you use your skills of solving equations, solving linear equations in order to rearrange a formula. Okay? And now we're going to start off with a fairly basic formula that involves just multiplication, but this one does mean something. So in this example 1, we're going to look at the area of a rectangle. Now, hopefully you can remember what the area of a rectangle is. It is length times width. Okay, now because we don't want to write out words all the time, that is one of the main points of algebra, so we can manipulate formulae and work with them easily. Instead of area we'll have A, and instead of length we'll have L, and we don't write time signs in algebra. Instead of width we'll have W. So the formula for our area rectangle is A equals LW. So, well, that would be straightforward to work out, like I said in the other video. If you knew the length and width, you'd just multiply length and width and you have the area. And remember to put units squared because area always has units squared. But what if we knew the area and the length and we wanted to work out the width? How do you rearrange that so that W is the subject? So it says W equals, and A and L are on the other side. Now you may already know what to do with the area and length because you are clever, and because it's a fairly simple formula as well. But let's look at what we need to do. We need to get W on its own. So this is where it's like solving a linear equation. When we're solving linear equations that usually have x in them, we're trying to get x on its own, aren't we, and end up with x equals, and we usually have a value. But when we rearrange in a formula, we don't have a value at the end. We have the letter equals and all the other letters on the other side. So we need to end up with W equals and A and L on the other side of the equation in some form or another, either multiplying, dividing, whatever. Okay, but it all starts with what the formula is to begin with. So if I want to get width on its own, I need to get rid of length. And how do we get rid of that L? Well, the L is multiplying by the W, and to get rid of multiplying by the length, we divide by the length. We divide by L. Remember, what's L divided by L? 1. When you divide something by itself, you always get 1. So we're left with W. Now if we divide this side by L, we need to divide this side by L. Now what's A divided by L? Well, we can't do anything with that. They're not numbers, they're just letters. So it's just A divided by L. So we're almost there. Okay, just going to move my page up. We've got A over L equals W, but I like to have my subjects on the left hand side. That's where they really should be. So I'm going to spin that around now and write W equals A over L. So basically W is now the subject of the formula because it says W equals A over L, and so if we knew the area and we knew the length, we divide the area by the length and we'll know the width. Okay, and that is That's the first example. Nice and simple. Sticking with rectangles. Okay, sticking with rectangles. Let's think about the perimeter. Okay, so this is example 2. Now, if we had a rectangle, and I'm just going to do a very basic one here. Sorry, it's not perfect, but it does the job. And we call the length L and the width W. Then the formula for the perimeter of that, we'll call that P, would be add all the lengths up. Now, if that's length, well, that's length as well. That's L. And if that's the width, that's the same. We can call that W. So if you add all those up, let's do it properly. We've got L plus W plus L plus W. And then if we simplify those, we can collect the two L's together. So that's 2L, and collect the W's together. That's 2W. So the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle, if we call the length L and the width W, is P equals 2L plus 2W. Now, if I know the length and the width, I can work out the perimeter very easily. I just substitute my length in there, width in there, work it out. What if, though, I know the perimeter and the width, and I want to work out the length? I need to rearrange this so that length is the subject, L is the subject. I want to rearrange this formula until L equals and all the other letters on the other side, P and W, in some form on this side. So how do we do it? We do it in the same way as we solve equations, and think about what we need to get rid of. So if I want to get L on its own, I need to get rid of plus 2W and times 2. What I get rid of first, remember number machines all those weeks ago? We get rid of the add and subtracting first. So to get rid of plus 2W, you take away 2W. Do it that side, do it that side. Going down the page, P take away 2W is just P take away 2W. Can't do anything with it. They're not numbers. It's algebra. Alright? 2L plus 2W take away 2W, nothing. That's why we did it. Right, now we need to get rid of times 2. Well, same as above, really. How do you get rid of times 2? We divide by 2. Divide that side by 2. Divide this side by 2. This side, all of it, remember, must be divided by 2. Not just the 2W or the P, all of it. And what does that equal? Well, exactly what it says. You can't do anything with it until we know values of P and W. So you just rewrite that. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 1L is L, which is what we want. Then we're going to spin it around. We have L equals P minus 2W all over 2. There you go. So L is now the subject. And if I knew the perimeter of a rectangle and I knew the width, I could substitute the two values in there and work out the length. Okay? One more example. Okay, one more example. Example 3. Oh, get my pen back up. Now this formula I just made up, okay? So T doesn't really mean anything. So we've got T equals 5x divided by 2 plus A. Right, so Tx and A don't mean anything. I just made it up. And I want the subject to be x. So I'm going to put that in brackets over there. So that's what I want the subject to be. I'm going to rearrange this, rearrange the formula to make x the subject. So I want x on its own. Right, so on this side with x, I've got plus a, I've got divide by 2, and then times 5. Those are the three things I need to get rid of, and that's the order I'm going to get rid of them. Okay, so to get rid of plus a, subtract a. Do it that side, do it that side, just like solving equations. T minus a, T minus a. Yeah, that's the main difference with equations. You can't work anything out when you're rearranging the formula, you just write down what it says. You can't collect them together. 5x over 2, 5x divided by 2. Okay, plus a minus a, nothing. That's why we did it. Now let's get rid of the divide by 2. How do we get rid of divide by 2? We multiply by 2. Do it that side, do it that side. Now because you've got two things to multiply by 2, you need to put them in brackets. T minus A. Okay? And you times this by 2, it cancels out the divide by 2, leaving behind 5x. Alright? So, the last thing we got to get rid of to get x on its own is the times by 5. How do we do that? Divide by 5. Alright, you've been so used to this now. Divide that side by 5 as well to keep it balanced. And then we have 2t minus a in brackets, all divided by 5. Yeah, don't forget to divide everything by 5. Equals x, because 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 1x is x. And then we spin it around. I'll just do it over this side, so I'm going to move the screen up. We have x equals 2t minus a all over 5. And there we have that formula rearranged with x as the subject. And if we knew what t was and we knew what a was, we could just substitute them in there. Do t, take away a, times by 2, divide by 5, and we would know what x is. Okay? And that's rearranging a formula in a nutshell. Basic ones though. If you look at the 3 examples, this one involved some adding, and some dividing, some multiplying, and so did the other ones. Okay? So it's only formulae, the only formulae we were looking at were ones involving addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The next video we'll look at when we have some powers like squared or cubed. Because there's a formula for the area of a circle is pi r squared, isn't it? Have a think about how could we rearrange that if I knew the area and I wanted to work out the radius. Right? A is pi r squared. Remember, pi is just a number. Represents 3.14. Okay, hope that helps. Thank you very much.